In this video, we dive into the movie Aquaman. We will discuss the storyline, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and character. Additionally, we will cover the movie's production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide reviews and share personal reactions. So let's get started. The DCU highest grossing movie, James Wan's Aquaman, is still an impressive achievement over 6 years after it broke historical DC movie record. The DC Extended Universe raced to its first crossover event after only 3 installments. After Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice, the Justice League, creation with cameos by Aquaman, Flash and Cyborg, then Justice League assembled a team, and Jason Momoa's Arthur Curry received his own spin-off 1 year later. James Wan Aquaman was the first movie outside Zack Snyder's DCU original plan to follow Justice League controversial release. The DCU officially over as the DCU began its first chapter. Jason Momoa will no longer play Aquaman, but he is set to join James Gunn's franchise as Lobo in the DCU upcoming Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. The DCU's Aquaman has not been cast yet, and it's unknown when or where the King of Atlan will first appear in the new DC universe. It will be challenging for the DCU to replace Aquaman, as Jason Momoa's Arthur Curry became one of the most popular characters in the whole DCU, as shown by Aquaman's record-breaking box office performances in 2018. As reported by Deadline James Wan 2018, Aquaman movie grossed $105 million domestically over its first 5 days in theater, and it tripled that amount at the end its domestic run, for a total domestic grosses of $334 million. Overseas, Aquaman quickly crossed the $300 million mark, and it gathered a total of $1.131 billion worldwide by the time of it left theater. Apart from claiming the title of the highest grossing DC movie, Aquaman has broke other record, landing at the second spot of Warner Bros. Highest grossing movie. After Harry Potter and the Deadline Halo Part 2, no other DCU movie got close to the Aquaman box office. The following 5 movies in the DCU box office ranking are all films that released before Aquaman: Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice, Wonder Woman, Suicide Squad, Man of Steel, and Justice League. The next movie in the list is Aquaman, only sequel, as Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom box office broke the DCU downward trend and reached $439 million, despite the franchise's poor result toward its conclusion. As reported by Business Insider, Aquaman budget statement ranged from $160 million to $200 million by 2025. It's not uncommon for superhero blockbusters like DC's The Flash and Marvel's The Marvel to reach budget of around $200 million, and unfortunately, it's not uncommon for them to flop at the box office, with The Flash crossing $271 million and Marvel's earning only $206 million worldwide due to inflation. Aquaman $160 million to $200 million was an even broader risk in 2018, especially considering that Aquaman was not an established property at the time. Man of Steel was not as controversial as Superman's next few movie appearance, but it still struggled to launch the DCU with solid box office result. Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice don't meet expectation, and Justice League underperformed massively. Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman gave the DCU a breath of fresh air, but nothing guaranteed that Aquaman would succeed. Yet not only did Aquaman surpass expectation, but it turned out one of the least popular. Batman has dominated DC box office for a decade. Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises reached the $1 billion mark before the DCU began, and Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice got to $72 million due to its lucky warm reception. After Justice League's disappointing $660 million run, The DCU seemed unlikely to cross the $1 billion mark, but to everyone's surprise, it was none other than Aquaman, who surpassed all expectation and claimed the title of highest grossing DC character of all time. James Wan's Aquaman proves that many other DC characters could drive just as much as Batman and Superman, if not more. Aquaman's record-breaking box office also proved that a superhero film's success does not depend solely on how popular a character is beforehand. Instead, each movie's quality and spectacle can make or break them at box office. For example, Aquaman's rich underwater world provided something groundbreaking for the genre, whereas a Flash converted bus plot subverted one of DC's most famous heroes movie debut. When it comes to evaluating the financial performances of top movie, it is not about what a film costs at the box office. The real tale is told when production budget P&A, talent, participation, and other costs collide, with box office grosses and ancillary revenue from VOD to DVD and TV. With the notable exception of Wonder Woman, Warner Bros. DC label has done little right over the past few years with its array of Deadline series. Leading Dog Zack Snyder films that culminated in Justice League, when Marvel's mounted its all-star team movie. The results were glorious despite remaining Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash and Aquaman. Justice League way underperformed relative to massive budget with $659 million in global ticket sale and made as much or no fun as known as Batman vs Superman. Warner did a smart thing by tapping James Wan to breathe new life into Aquaman, making the introduction of Game of Thrones favorite Jason Momoa the high watermark of the Justice League, and similar to how Patty Jenkins injected an ensure sensibility into Wonder Woman, $821 million and showcased Gal Gadot. Remember, these movies are supposed to be fun, and Wan did much the same by delivering a B-level DC comic hero perfectly for the Christmas Momo, who hooked female audiences in the US. Woman over 25 gave Aquaman his best score of 85% in post-track exists, while Moms turned out in a greater number than theirs 56 million percent to 44%. As part of Warner Moms of Momo campaign, with daughter Star Wars film in the Christmas corridor, Aquaman took full advantage and became the movie of the moment. The picture dropped first into the overseas market and quickly crossed $300 million abroad, a majority of that from China, where he was Warner Bros. Second biggest title ever there, and the fourth highest grossing superhero movie of all time. Aquaman was slightly slower out of the gate domestically. Next with the DC movie, grossing $105 million in its first 5 days of release. But that was only because Christmas fell on a Tuesday last year and movie-going exploded after that point up until MLK weekend. Aquaman turned around 3x multiplier from the launch number for a final $334 million domestic take. Its final gross was $1.1 million worldwide, making the film the highest global grossing Warner DC title ever, surpassing Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight Rises. The movie also became the second highest grossing film worldwide for Warner Bros. After Harry Potter and the Deadly Hallow. China's final take alone to $98 million is ultimately the second place for US title in the tournament, inching out Venice to $72 million in a Middle Kingdom. Aquaman profit of $260 million are only 3% better than the Wonder Woman's last year. One sources found he was more expensive than Wonder Woman, $200 million to $149 million in net production cost. Not surprising given that films with water are always more expensive. The film spent $110 million less in global P&A than what Warner shelled out of Wonder Woman, at $158 million. Participation on Aquaman at $30 million are double what he made on Wonder Woman. But that is still a good showing when you exceed $1 billion in ticket sale, a launch of franchise, or a revenue between global vertical rental, TV and home entertainment, and on Aquaman's amount to $732 million, compared with Wonder Woman's $659 million. I came across a tweet recently which suggested that a movie based on the DC universe of comic would be received entirely differently if they bat out in different order. Specifically, what if the films had been released in a way Marvel Studio does, by telling stories about individual heroes and then linking them with a theme of film. Of course, it's more of a thought experiment than anything else. And there is part of the DC movie that would not make any sense if they were released as is only two different sequences. But overall idea is interesting and one that applies in any genre and even to DC competition like Black Panther. To what extent is our reception of film shaped by the context of its release? In the case of the newest DC film, Aquaman, it's hard to avoid thinking this way. James Wan's movie follows on the heel of last year's Justice League, a sloppy, not completely unwatchable, gathering a favorite character, painted in case of boring villain and some laughable CGI. But because Aquaman mostly steps around a broader story that copied our previous film, it becomes more fun as a result. It's an often ridiculous experiences, but charmingly so. We get space opera style battle between undersea navies, like monsters and some fleeting example of a chemistry between the cast member. After Wonder Woman, Aquaman is the second best DC movie. Admittedly, it's a low bar to clear, but it proved that there is a still fun to be had in this sandbox. The article Aquaman's character, played here by Jason Momoa, has long been a subject of mockery. Will be for him woe how the Warner Brothers film franchise. The idea of a superhero who speaks with fish and aquatic mammals is inherently silly, to the point that it became a running gag on the HBO series back in 2025. So the tactic was to pick up bravery, brooding star like Momo, give the characters some socially trapped tattoos, and get your Momo to spout surface dude like my man, and yeah, improbably works Aquaman rewind the story to the meeting of the Curry's parent Tom and Queen Atlanta. Tom, a lighthouse keeper in New England, rescues Atlanta when the Atlants wash up near his home during a storm. They fall in love, have started and building a new life together when Atlanta's past catches up with her. She must return to Atlantis permanently to endanger Tom and Arthur. 30 years later, Arthur is going about his business, saving unfavorable sailor at sea, when he runs into the Mera, who is first met during the event of Justice League. Mera tells him that his first half-brother Orm, the current king of Atlantis, is plotting a war on the surface world and revenge for the human pollution of the ocean. Being that is the first solo film for a superhero, the expected story beats follow. Arthur tries to reject his role as a leader. The villain compels him to act. He does on a quest to prove his worthiness and take up the throne of the Atlantis. Unlike any of the three major DC characters we have seen in live action movies or TV, to his point, Aquaman has a largely blank slate on which to draw its interpretation of the character's mythology. As a result, aspect of the undersea world, already established by the comic, feel now when even a little unexpected. We see light technology controlled by the Atlanteans, like laser weapon and armored massive glowing shutters, and the various races that make up Atlantean society. The film does occasionally fill our stuff with all these details, but thankfully there's really only subplot to worry about. This means the world building does not interrupt the flow of the story to Batman. Something that Batman vs Superman, Suicide Squad, and Justice League are tripled over. The comparison to Black Panther is useful again when it comes to be a culture presentation angel. Whereas the Marvel film received a lot of attention for the black house and for futurist concept of a hyper-advanced black society. Aquaman struggled to accomplish the same thing for the basic Islander culture. When Momoa led a haka dance at the world premiere, he suggested that his films work in a similar way to Black Panther, but other than incorporating same hacker movie into the fight choreography. He does not really have space to relate Aquaman back to culture, at least not in this installment. And what if the villain in the Vetri universe as Owen Wilson pulls his weight into his son? But other than embodying his seeming cruelty of society, there is not huge amount for fear for him. I knew I was on the film side, however, when I actually found myself getting excited as further tracked on his central weapon and joining the classic gold and green outfit. Maybe it's Momo's screen presence, and maybe it's a bonker visual. But Vance Films is a lot more entertaining than a movie with his character and his track record has any right to be. Perhaps the DC cinematic universe is not gasping for air just. I did not expect and yet appreciated the Indiana Jones Escape Quest and Arthur and Mera embark on. I wonder whether the filmmakers will find a way to retcon changes they made to the character design we see in Justice League, like Arthur's eye color and Dare's super sword. If I were to sum this movie up in one sentence, I would say that it's pretty good. I definitely enjoy seeing Aquaman in theater on opening weekend. It was better than a lot of DC movies like the recent Superman vs. Batman film, which I did not care for. Aquaman was about an affair with the most recent Wonder Woman movie. Jason's portrayal of Aquaman was a new take on a legendary superhero. He was a little less lame and elegant than a cartoon comic version, and a little more, well, just more. His first couple scene as an adult portrayed him as an angry and hardened individual. He beat up some bad guys and rescued a submarine. He felt a bad guy to die, and then he proceeded to almost get himself into a bar fight. At this point, I was pinning Aquaman as more of a Batman style superhero, but just when I thought I had Aquaman figured out, he started cracking jokes and being all sweet. We began to see Aquaman's gentle caring in his conversation with his father. We also see that he has a sense of humor when he meets up with Mera, played by Amber Heard. The two of them have an immediate on-screen connection, and it's easy to tell that Mera is going to be a love interest. Aquaman was kind of the confusing character throughout the film, aside from his motive, mother's leaving a young age. He did not have a reason to be ardent. He had a pretty simple and straightforward childhood. He had a close relationship with his father and received special combat training from a man I think was his uncle. Either way, he seemed rather happy growing up. So when we see him as an adult and he's all angry and hardened, I was slightly caught after God. Luckily, quickly changed a more upbeat, funny sort of character that matches his character's development. I don't blame Jason for his inconsciousness in the character of Aquaman, in my opinion. Jason Momoa did a fine job acting, and I think that he could do an ever better with a sequel. From an acting, and I think that he could do one even better with a sequel. From an acting standpoint, I would argue to say that Amber Heard did a better job than most of the actresses in the movie. She was a central character to the film and followed Aquaman throughout. This movie has some wild stuff in it that which felt like a sci-fi film with crazy water car and laser gun. Other parts feels like a fantasy adventure with giant monsters and epic fight scene. And then there were the part that seemed more like a normal superhero movie. The movie was kind of all over the place. After Aquaman, I was looking through the notes I discussed, scrabbled into small pieces of paper and noticed that I had twist written. What the fuck am I watching? After just hardly an insensitive critical objection, when I began to sit down and write his review, I realized it was more than just a simplistic gut reaction. The latest is depicable in DC Extended Universe, the series of superhero movies from Warner Bros. That, aside from Wonder Woman, have done little else than disappointed. Aquaman is somehow the most ambitious and most awful for the bunch. It's a valid hot base, or this reminded me of the house on Rock, The Wizard Funhouse collection of tales guided in a Wisconsin by Grass Alex Jordan. Mastery or Georgian of his neighbor, Frank Lloyd Wright. Each voice a wide example of sight, sounds, and genre to behind. Influenced by countless sources throughout history, each plays like an ironic experiences, in which one never fully settled, and oddly enough, each feature an instrument playing outbursts at the house on the rock. It's an animatronic display said to be built as Octopus Garden, whereas in Aquaman is a CJ Cephalov who plays a gram during an underwater editorial about. It's rather difficult to describe what director James Wan and his second-rated David Leslie Johnson have done here. Their story of the half-Atlantean, half-land labor hero follows Arthur, widely known as Aquaman, who must return to the undersea kingdom and fight his evil brother, or to claim his rightful spot on the throne, while also stopping arms hope for a war between the surface world and the Seven Kingdom beneath the surface. It's based on a comic book character. The material draws heavily from science fiction aesthetic in a blend of neon and a high-tech supersuit and a metropolis at the bottom of the ocean. Yet it read a royal scandal with all the weight of the Shakespeare. The 2.5 hour adventure looks and feels like the span of flesh and it drawn with Jesse. There even a land fairing that plays like a cheap knockoff an Indiana Jones or Lara Croft yarn. To be sure, this is a movie chock full of something element much to the viewer's experiences. Momoa, who played the role in his Justice League, approaches Aquaman with an unchecked swagger. His performance consists of the dramatic look back over his shoulder, his lantry man falling in the wind or wrapped in a heap man heaven, where his dialogue, limited to suffer dude level exclamation. Once his phallic spectre is broken by his brother Aquaman searches alongside his love interest Mera, who looks like a plastic doll of Disney serial for mythical trident that will earn him the coveted laugh-inducing title Ocean Master. But in order to retrieve Sad, he must locate a lawsuit, the location of which is hidden in Thisterius' underground city, which can only be found using an ancient, uncovered by Atlantean shoulder. All of this requires globe-trotting and sundry CGI battle with the various and guys. Black Manta, a futuristic pirate bent on avenging the death of his father. Freaky looking trench monster. Atlantea's super suited an army of grab people, and the sea monster that make the dragon seems dwarfish. By the time Aquaman faces or in an undersea war, everything depends on our hero's ability to perform the signature move of the ocean master. A twirly button trick that creates an impenetrable water shield. If the various level and goal completion later throughout the plot did not already establish Aquaman's dependence on a video game structure. This details use associations elsewhere. The score by Rupert Gregson Williams has more personalities than James McAvoy character displayed. The music, much like the movie as a whole, maintains an oddball blend of genre. During the camera's tour of Atlantis, resembling the flying car journeys. Blade Runner 2049, if the Los Angeles was Pandora, from Avatar 2009, the electronic sound of it is blade in the more legal design that involve Aquaman's royal mother Atlanta. Our discussion Atlantis royalty. The score uses rousing blockbuster who says comparable to Thor. Indeed, it's a movie that seems to have an identity crisis before our very eyes. Most obviously, a lot about Aquaman borrows from the narrative trajectory of Marvel's show, as what follows a hero not yet ready for the throne promises. Both characters must leave their native land in the fish out of water scenario, as Both also has some growing up to do, mythical villain to defeat, and a brother to thwart before the transforming into the hero everyone knows and loves. Not that the obviousnesses of the material trouble The writer, who did not appear to be a concerned writing good dialogue or implying a novel story structure either, amid many pop culture references throughout, is among the most apparent. They are also bang wing to the surfing cinema like jaw when Black Manta proclaimed, and they reply I know something it does. The same sort of back and forth occur later when King Nereus says I am now trying to start a war. Then Orm replies the war has already begun. These patterns of dialogue are mirrored by the frequency of abrupt plot transition. No less than 3 times in the movie is a calm moment interrupted with a sudden, unexpected explosion that jolts the character into the next action sequences. Van cut his take on horror from SWAT 2004 to The Conjuring 2013, and he only recently began branching out into the blockbuster fare with The Furious 7. He is a talented visualist but rarely works from exceptional script, and he brings an undeniable visual appeal to the Aquaman. It might all be more impressive if the CGI had not reached cartoonish low, given the nature of the hero, when he relies on computer technology to achieve deep sea action. Underwater scenes have a constant waviness to them. The character faces undulating over so slightly, where then subsequently voices have a distracting turning echo. One or two memorable images stand out, such as Aquaman and Mera descending into the black pit at the bottom of the sea, surrounded by thousands of creepy baddies and guarded only by the pink light of a flare. But somewhere between the official sunset, bubble, accentuated action, and the wide way everyone seemed to just float on screen without treading water. The visual presentation proves very silly, very early into the proceedings. Aquaman being promisingly enough with a scene in which the banished Atlanta meets our human over. They share an affecting the romance, produce a child, and the Atlanta becomes a target of our kingdom. And if these intense fight sequences ensue, and is wrinklingly short to a fish's land. That too the moment like this soft darkest scene of humor. But the movie is not self-aware enough to realize it's just how ridiculous, over the top and absurd every scene manages to be. There was not a single moment where some part of me was not asking, what the fuck am I watching? In a way, perhaps due to the presence in the production reminded me of another comparison to Aquaman. The Masters of the Universe from 1987 both flung forward in a happening mismatch of genre, references and tone, and watching is like seeing an expensive accident unfold. It's blockbusters and at time an embarrassing movie that's seeing everything, but almost nothing it tries work. And yet I could not hold it against someone if I found its quality about Aquaman to be fun. I happened upon a DVD of Aquaman 2018 at my local library and could not pass it up. The film has gotten rave review and given the DCU's relatively poor track record compared to Marvel. I decided they were due for a win. For first of all, I love James Momoa as Arthur, even as a kid. The blonde orange shirted Aquaman of the comic book seemed pretty silly to me, especially when compared to Marvel's Prince Mera. All that said, I thought the movie was okay, oh sure, plenty of action, thriller and jealous, but it did not really stand out. There are already plenty of films about reluctant exile king and their rise to power against evil. Frankly, Marvel's Black Panther 2018 did it better, although it's tough to compare the two characters. Actually, the storyline is a rehashed version of Prince Nama's own quest origin, the Throne of Atlantis, which is began 1965 tells to the astonished issue 75 comic book, complete with the twist of the Trident. To be fair, making a film that takes place mainly underwater is a pretty tough task. No, not necessarily the technical aspect of it, but making it seem like the characters are not really acting above water and faking being mild under the surface of the Atlantic. And caves in what reality are caves at all practical underwater. All they would do was providing drag while swimming. I have not mentioned Amber here as Mera, and I thought her performance was neither really good nor really bad. However, I spent a lot of time watching the movie and wondering if her actual hair were dyed such a brilliant red. At some points a few years ago, there must have been an urgent corporate meeting at Warner Bros. Pictures about Aquaman the subject of the meeting. How do we make Aquaman not lame? In the laundry list of the ridiculous suggestions. I imagine that some items include cast above. Charismatic dude as Archer Curry and feature the electric guitar prominently. It's Sandham 2018, a pretty darn good year for comic book movies. And yes, our Lord, toward a film that turned together to create Aquaman actually work. Well, when the movie is not having a wide identity crisis, the James Wan directed film focuses on the child afterward. Arthur Curry's lessons being the son of the male human, and the Atlantean queen, Curry's half-brother Orm, rules Atlantis. But his warmongering behavior toward the surface world leads to concern. From his portrait Mera, who required Curry to stop Orm and take the throne. It's already possible for me to describe Aquaman without dropping the title of several other title films. The setup and the dynamic between Arthur and Orm are reminiscent of the Black Panther. The journey of Arthur and Mera turns into the national treasure. Atlantis straight up looks like underwater avatar. By the end, I thought that the new Godzilla trailer was playing again by an accident. And there were a lot of the rings battle sequences. The short answer to the question is yes. I've come down to the Jason Momoa as a leading man. We got only a taste of him in Justice League. But besides some U-turns of the outright and my manning, there's vast no geo from his part in that film. And it provides us with the glimpses of his personality. And that is fully expanded in one take on the character. I say that Momo is the key to holding it altogether because he remains the constant throughout the film. Arthur displays a this devil Mary care attitude. And while much of the film can be said to be derivative of other modern superhero films, most films nowadays seem to want to copy Deadpool and Guardians of the Galaxy. But upon close inception, Aquaman starts to forget the tone of its own through its protagonist. Despite his antics, Arthur is never an annoying or boring character. He also quarrels with the Atlanteans and his heritage, but he ultimately answers their call to action not because of any profound change in his character, but because he realizes that he is consistent with his own desire of helping and deserving regular folk. Truthfully, Archer could be a later minor to a surface fox or pollution. Yes, warmongering auction papers are bad, but why were the only ones who needed to change during this movie? Another reasons why I would compare Aquaman to Black Panther is due to the apparent devotion to the world building. And Atlantis, a word that was happening would be immerses myself. But everything, ironically, no pain intended, seemed very surface level. Bright color and futuristic technology were prevalent, but I wanted a greater understanding of just how Atlantean society operated. Like Black Panther in Avakanta also, less so with no Avakanta being rooted in Afrofuturism and Atlantis being pure fantasy. This has made me wish for some sort of a full Atlantis mid-series instead. What is the culture like? What is the experience of being normal Atlantean? Why the adversaries of the half-bred of the Archer Curry? Do people support you are that Orm is trying to stir up? Instead, we'll just get a bunch of extras who love to see brutal act of the blood rest on the stadium. It's a shame because I found the history of the Atlanteans as described by exposition Mrs. William Defoe to be fascinating. In the end, Aquaman is just a classic Shakespearean tale that mixes a lot of strange inspiration together. Even the soundtrack is electric, with the electric guitar that I mentioned at the top, some traditional music, and even electronic synthesized music. The drama between Orm and the Arthur severely disappointed. There was a real opportunity to make Orm almost kill him Askew, but Patrick Wilson is just as decidedly superhuman in the role. I dare you to try to not laugh every time he says Ocean Master. As soon as I was able to find my bearings almost among us, all of the craziness, I was able to just bite back and enjoy the action. The underwater sequences work, given the uncharted territory of having to simulate underwater combat. But the action on the ground is where the film was its strongest. A chase battle scenes on the rooftop of Sicily. It really was sure my highlight. I don't think choreographed fights are particularly was not a strong thought. I think he is Furious 7, who was inferior to Justin Lyon's work in the Fast and Furious series, with both that Aquaman having too many unnecessary stylistic camera emotion. But he is one for trying to hone his craft beyond his usual horror movies, The Conjuring being one I enjoyed in particular. Aquaman is not a culture force to be ignored by the Black Panther, Infinity War, or even DC's own Wonder Woman. DC missed the opportunity to make an environmentalist movie, the same way Wonder Woman in feminist one. Considering the uphill struggle that DC has with his film universe, the movie is funny enough to help you forget some of DC's misstep and have to keep his franchise afloat. Starting off clunky, but picking up and finishing strong. Aquaman does what was long throughout impossible. It made the character cool. Justice Memo's Christmas shine through in the performances. His characters of Arthur Curry is a smart ass, first and foremost. A big kid in a world of growing, grumpy adult. He is never not absolutely astounded by the everything he sees around him. That inborn curiosity of being the product of two very different, yet ultimately early similar worlds. He is cocky, but he is able to, and the way he carries himself in body surface world and John in the Atlantis speak loudly for him. Funny and fierce, Momo's Aquaman beams likability. I could not see anyone else being cast in the role. At this juncture, not a fan of the long-running Game of Thrones series, and only ever seeing him in his role. In VFC and the ill-fated Justice League of 2017, I had my expectations pretty much set. And there was one thing I would take away from this movie, is that he would steal the show he did. Amber here is cool, as well as the powerful. It's sometimes their inevitable romance is about in but the actor plays off each other well. Patrick Wilson's The Conjuring film's Watchman returned his long-time movie partner. Ran for one pop, if not the best antagonist role in the DCU. King Orm is not complicated in his mission or motivation, but he believes he is a right in them, and is the deadliest aspect of a great antagonist believing they are the protagonists in their own story. Willem Dafoe's Park Ant-Man and the Wasp, fresh off the boat Nicole Kidman, Darv Johan Davis and the Lost Ark, Julie Andrews herself voicing the mighty Kraken, Digimon Hudson and the Morrison. Van and Company did a multiple villain being well too. Other comic book movies have tripled over the amount of villain they have tried to include, whether we are rooting for them or against them. Black Manta, especially, and the foil relationship he has with his father, and relations to Arthur and his dad, is cool to see from a storytelling point of view. He is a compelling villain, and Filmento on YouTube poses a great argument for like we don't. Manta being the avenging Batman to authors assumed. Superman mentality. I will link the video below. I take my villain like I take my ocean, deep and dark and brimming with the mystery. Here's how the James Wan, the effervescent visual of Atlantis itself, and the way Wan shoots up, both on dry land and in the water is fantastic. Found myself going on the multiple occasions. This make knows how to shoot a film. The angle he chooses to shoot from in some sequences, framing of certain shot to be character, are center, but also not over the we are meant to focus on how art action is so well choreographed. It's all great. I could go over his thing 100 times with a fine-tooth comb and still not be able to pick out of every last visual bite. I was able to pick out all the inspiration behind many creation in this need to see on artist rendition on Jamal, full of meta humor, pop culture references, a sweet score and killer soundtrack, and an uncredited scroll that not is entertaining, but also hint at a sequel, Aquaman like Shazam, that followed it. with the visual interactions that take a chance to make even the darkest of stories just a little bit more breezy and audience is minded. Nearly every aspect of his films for me, put off by some of the de-aging effect. I have very few qualms with Aquaman, from the characters and their soft, complicated relationship to the visual and the pure comic book feel. James Wan has done it again. A screenplay is a wide, ever-changing thing, but in his earlier stages often fell with his writer's wildest. Most fantastical ideas dream of with no thought, given to budget restriction, scenes that usually get struck from the finished product for being too complex, too ambitious, too long consuming, or simply too expensive. I mention this only because I just experienced this Aquaman, quite possibly the first major release film I have ever seen that felt like not a single idea from the conception phase was weighted for being too intense or over the top. Yes, an octopus will play the drum. Yes, Julie Andrews will voice a sea bass who lives at the outscore. Yes, there will be crab people. Yes, there will be Granton Shim used as war machine. Yes, we will ask audiences to believe that Patrick Wilson is Jason's more younger brother. Yes, to every single idea that might certain the audience is our Aquaman genuinely batshit 2 hour plus runtime. Plot wise, the result is a hot, foamy mess. My friends, but a mess that washed over the milk tidal wave. A mess so wide and candy colored and eager to have a bitch in time. That is some of the most fun I have had at theater this year. Anchored by a Momo who is having the time of his goddamn life and director James Wan. Genuinely gorgeous vision of an entire universe under the ocean waves. It's a bit of an annoying critic job to tell you to see a movie on the biggest screen possible. But Aquaman is truly one of the year's only film, along with the Roma and Mission Impossible Fallout. Not bad company. The waits are practically required to seek out the wildest, loudest screen you can. I would project this thing onto the side of an actual ocean liner if I could. And then the ocean liner would somehow get chased into a hurricane made of the humpback whale. Because that's the type of movie Aquaman is. Picking up a year after 9 foot tall kitchen until Celestial Wolf tried to invade it. Justice League Aquaman sees Arthur Carey burn up an Atlantean queen and a human lighthouse keeper being called back to his native Atlantis by Mera Amberheard and Vulko, where Arthur's half-brother Orm is planning war with the surface world. Because Atlantis still settles succession dispute with Fiat to the death but it triggers for bureaucracy. I can't literally track the land dwellers without the support of all 5 underwater kingdom before Orm can wrangle together the army he needs. Archer he starts with tracking down the legendary Trident of King Atlan. The refreshing thing about Aquaman is, for all its technical wizardry, the plot is surprisingly old school, owing a lot to the adventure serial of the 1930s and 40s that later birthed the Indiana Jones movie. It's a MacGuffin seeking treasure hunt with the Archer and Mira Globe hoping to collect clues. One scene in Desert Crypt almost feels like the rare bright spot of the early Tomb Raider movie. This plays nicely to Momoa's strength. The former Kale Dragon is not going to win any dramatic Oscar anytime soon, but as a voice-cracking henchman punching adventure with a charismatic grin. He is a young Harrison Ford, plus 5 inches. Momoa leans so hard into the glitchiness or if this film would have killed him if he was lactose intolerant. And make no mistake, Aquaman is a cheesy film, but because especially its a leading man are well aware and have a way of making it work. But the real star of Aquaman is a War Dead Man. Well, this was fun. I was not expecting to like this all that much since DC films tend to suck other than the Wonder Woman. I know like 2 DCU movies, why can't be other be like this one? Superhero movies should be fun, not hairy and dark and depressing as shit. But maybe that's just me. I prefer them to all be like Guardians of the Galaxy. Aquaman is a bit silly tough, so I am sure it won't be for everyone. I love the scene it gets a bit more bonker as the movie goes on, which I also loved Burton as giant sea creature. We're fun to see in DC film and the whole underwater thing worked well and gave the movie a different feel from other superhero films, which are all becoming way too damn similar. Jason Momoa was also a lot of fun to watch, mainly because you can tell that he is having a lot of fun playing this character. Okay, and he is also hot, but my heart still belongs to Thor. Chris Hemsworth is still the ultimate bottle. The two main female roles were also very strong, which is becoming more popular in movie. We don't want Jose, useless woman. Amber here the Nicole Kidman kick ass, who never kicked man would kick ass. And Amber Heard's character was cool. I was not sure how I would feel about her, as I have never thought she was the greatest actress. Hell, I even really liked his love story between Aquaman's parents. I don't normally go for that sort of thing, but all the characters were so likable in this that I wanted everyone to live happily after a year. I say I can't give the slightest shit about either Superman or Batman in this DCU film. The characters need to be likable if you are going to care about what happened to them. Hollywood still hasn't quite figured this out. Beyond that, I don't know what else to say about the movie. I always struggle to review superhero movies. They are fun and enjoy them while watching them about. It's not a favorite genre of mine. I don't expect anything Oscar worthy for them. I just want to switch off for a couple of hours be entertained. Aquaman was definitely entertaining and I may have possibly liked it even more than a few of the DCU movies. I will try to post my December launch of next week, followed by all my 2018 new and up torn laces. So I may sneak in viewing of Roma this weekend in case it's worthy of the top 10. I will just pretend it. I have to admit that I am not necessarily a huge fan of Defoe. I think he's a decent actor and has been in an interesting range of film, but my main reason for even giving him much thought is probably because he is one of so few actors from my home state. Why are there so few famous people from my state? As DVD all my actors top 10, this was ranked from my least favorite to favorite movie instead of by performances. To be honest, number 1 is probably my favorite performances as well. He is awesome in that. So here my top 10 William movies. The English Patient secured this movie. Speed to Cruise Control. American Dreams. American Psycho. Crab Baby. By 24th of July. The USA box office broke records in 2018 thanks to the blockbusters like Black Panther and surprises like A Quiet Place. But the international box office, primarily China, is still essential for Hollywood, and 2018 proved that. China has approved an unexpected number of Hollywood movies this month in the effort to reach its 2018 box office goal of $8.7 million by year's end. Bloomberg recently reported China still relies on many important movies, but it's fast catching up to the US in terms of its box office. The country is projected to surpass the US as the world's biggest theatrical market by 2022. The 10th highest grossing movie in the US of 2018, from Black Panther to The Grinch. Movies that underwhelmed in the US like Dwayne The Rock Johnson's Rampage rebounded in China. It grossed $101 million in the US, but $156 million in China. The Mechanical Monster movie made $530 million worldwide, boosted by its $153 million take in China. Venom's Sony Spider-Man spin-off overcame terrible reviews to become a global hit, propelled by its Chinese box office. Despite a 28% Rotten Tomatoes critic score, Venom is the fifth highest grossing movie in the world in 2018 with $855 million. But another huge comic book movie could swim past Venom any day now, Warner Bros. Aquaman is currently at $750 million worldwide and is eyeing over $900 million before it leaves theater. It's grossed nearly $190 million in the US, but $232 million in China. Thanks for their early release ahead of its domestic debut. Chinese audiences love monsters movies. Exhibitor Relations senior box office analyst Jeff Block told Business Insider. Earlier this year, and some of China's top Hollywood movies fall into that category, like Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, Aquaman, Venom, The Meg, and The Rampage. But Chinese audiences also flock to the theater for the like of Mission Impossible, Fallout, showing that it's not all about monsters mime. 9 Hollywood movies entered in the top 20 at the Chinese box office this year. According to Box Office Mojo, we have rounded them up, including the Chinese, domestic, and the worldwide box office for each. Thanks to the smash successes of Aquaman, A Star is Born, and The Meg, Warner Bros. Capped off the worldwide box office, crossing $5.6 million in the ticket sale and outpacing 2017 by 9%. Both domestic and international markets contributed to the boost in the ticket sale, putting the studio behind Disney at number 2 in terms of market share. The studio's North American box office bounty crossed $1.9 million overseas. Warner Bros. Generated $3.6 million and outpace of 17% from 2017, and Alex came the record of $3.17 billion in 2014. The improvement was due in part to the foreign market. Non-traditional films rarely worked in this region, and that was very interesting, said Tom Walter, Warner Bros. Head of international distribution. That means audiences are very receptive to go to the movies and see good stories. That's very encouraging. Warner Bros. Record year came despite some fiercest headwinds in the major market. Multiplexes in Italy, Spain, and South Korea offered some declines, and China's growth slowed to 9%. Still, China had a banner year for the studio and brought in over $951 million. Jason Momoa glistening has paired with the appeal of Furious 7. Director James Wan were able to lure moviegoers and make Aquaman a roaring achievement. It's how about Warner Bros. And this is the highest grossing movie to date in the Middle Kingdom. Not all titles that struck a chord in Hollywood were able to find their footing overseas. Crazy Rich Asians, for example, could not find 10 audiences in China. That's particularly because what made the film become a cultural in North America was a novelty behaving a big budget studio romantic comedy with an all-Asian cast for the first time in 25 years. It did not hold the same resources in the mainland, where most theatrical releases feature Asian talent. China is such an interesting place because it's very unpredictable, Molter said. When you can get a movie that really resonates with the Chinese audiences, it makes a big difference. Overall, a diverse slate of the blockbusters buoyed revenue to new height. Aquaman was Warner Bros. Top earning movie of the year worldwide with $850 million and counting, while A Star is Born was the Sun title to cross $200 million in North America in 2018. Aquaman did not pass that milestone domestically until January. The studio's other biggest films globally include Fantastic Beasts, The Crime of Grand World, $661 million, Ready Player One, $582 million, and The Meg, $528 million. This article originally stated that Warner Bros. Crossed $42 million worldwide, which is industry total global box office haul, not the studio's revenue. DC's biggest movie box office helped explain the usual DC universe casting decision a number of years later. While the franchise has not reached the financial height of the MCU, like Avengers Endgame, DC's movie history has had some major hits and a number of releases that managed to cross the over sought after $1 billion box office mark. Thus, DCU timeline resulted in some notable examples of DC box office hits. The cinematic universe would eventually come to an end in 2023. However, the franchise's biggest hit hold an important legacy to this day, and one that seemingly shed light on way a specific casting became Reality for the DC Universe timeline despite it raising some eyebrow. While the animal handles of DC movies history have largely centered on Batman and Superman, it's instead the King of Atlantis who takes the crown in terms of its highest box office. 2018 Aquaman earned $1.13 million in the worldwide box office. As per Box Office Mojo, DC has had strong box office result in the years since. They have never quite managed to beat this result. 2019 Joker came closest recently, with its $19 million box office mojo. Worldwide box office The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises both also came also. This result does make sense, but in terms of Aquaman offering a big second adaptation of a character who has been historically marginally overlooked in this regard, and in terms of providing you plenty of spectral change to its unveiling of the underwater. Jason Momoa being cast as a DC Universe Lobo was a decision that garnered some notable audiences. Surprised when it was first announced, since the DCU's intent was to move away from the DCU's past. Bringing such a prominent DCU actor in naturally raised some question mark, even if Momo was returning in a new role. However, seeing just how successful Aquaman was adds more context to the decision. Aquaman's success means many know Momo as Aquaman. It also showed how effective the actor could be in the superhero genre and DC world. Meaning so long as the DCU can establish his Lobo as notably different to Aquaman, the decision will likely pay off, given Lobo is very different to Aquaman on several levels, other than the fact about sheer love of writing and, depending on the version of Aquaman, a love of snarky comment. This should not prove too difficult for the franchise. As such, DC can have the definite benefit of bringing back a major DCU actor who started in DC's biggest box office hit seemingly without the detriment. Momo is also associated with a range of franchises, including the Fast and Furious, Dune, and Game of Thrones, further establishing him as a box office draw and as some who is not slowly thought of Aquaman. As such, the decision to make room for the actor cell makes sense on this level. With the DCU not being afraid to bring back prior DC actor in new role, like Nathan Fillion and Anthony Garrigan. Bringing back a more prominent actor like Momo presents some challenges but also some unique advantage. Having an actor who is closely acquainted with the norms of an expanded cinematic universe makes sense for DCU to capitalize on, especially this year in this own setup. The specific decision to cast Jason Momoa as Lobo itself seems especially par for the course following Aquaman given what the 2018 movie achieves. It's commonly noted that Aquaman was considered a bit of silly hero and a subject of joke before this DCU depiction, with Aquaman turning things around, while Lobo is less the subject of the mockery and more just a character that turned to be more obscure to audiences. Momoa taking on the role presents some of the same potential. Lobo tends to be a more comedic character. The potential is here for the DC universe to provide a version of Lobo that fleshes out the characters for audiences. This was seen particularly after given James Gunn's history with the taking a character audiences tend to take less seriously and add more complexity to them as evidence, with Polka Dot Man and Visual Hindi Guns prior DC release. Combined with Momo's history of doing the same, it seems very much like this a possible approach for Lobo. With Jason's Momo, Lobo set to appear in 2026 Supergirl. It will be soon become clear whether the DC universe will be able to replicate some of the DCU success with Aquaman and Momo new casting. Whatever happened, this decision is sure to be a fascinating part of DC movie lore, specifically given Aquaman's immense box office success. The King of Atlantis is ringing over the box office for the second weekend in row. Warner Bros. Superhero movie Aquaman is on place to sell an estimated $51 million in tickets at the 1 to 5 theaters in the US and Canada from Friday through Sunday. Continuing its run as a number one film in North America in its Super Bowl weekend. That figure represents a decline are just 24% from its debut and along with an estimated $85 million international this weekend, brings the film's worldwide total to $748 million. It's the number one film globally for the fourth consecutive week. Aquaman's strong second film caps a record year at the box office after a lackluster 2017. On Sunday, domestic revenue for 2018 crossed $11.8 billion, up nearly 7% from the year before and ahead of 2016 previous all-time high of about $11.4 billion. In second place this weekend, Disney's musical sequel, Mary Poppins Return, will take in about $28 million, which marks a 19% increase from its opening and brings the film's domestic total to about $98 million after 12 days in theater. Overseas has earned about $56 million, with $28 million of that coming this weekend. Rounding out the top 5 are Paramount's Transformer spin-off The Bumblebee, with an estimated $20 million, Sony's estimated adventure Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, with an estimated $18 million, and Warner Bros. During drama The Mule, with an estimated $11.8 million. There were no new major releases this weekend, but two films that opened on Christmas Day will crack to the top 10 will take in about $7.8 million for the weekend, good for 6th place, while Sony's Comedy will take in about $7.3 million, putting it in 7th place. In limited release, Sony Pictures' classic Lear and Harley movie, Stan and Ollie, is going in 5 theaters with an estimated $79 million, which work out to a per screen average of the 15. Check out the December 28 to 30 numbers below. Aquaman $51.6 million, Mary Poppins Return $28 million, Bumblebee $20.5 million, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse $18.3 million, The Mule $11.8 million, Voice $7.8 million, Holmes and Watson $7.3 million, Second Act $7.2 million, Ralph Blake Internet $7.6 million, The Grinch $4.2 million. Aquaman is now the first DC movie since The Dark Knight Rises to earn over $1 billion at the global box office. Aquaman is the first of the 6 films in the DC Extended Universe to cross $1 billion worldwide according to Box Office Mojo. This is also the 5 weekends since Aquaman premiered domestically that it has slipped to the second place at the box office. Aquaman earned $17 million in its 4th weekend of release, while the upside staring beyond glanced on any Kevin Hart. This is Aquaman director James Wan's second film to cross the $1 million mark at the global box office. Jason Momoa Aquaman has broken record at the worldwide box office to become the 20th highest grossing film of all time over the weekend, according to Box Office Mojo. The blockbuster has made over $1.30 million so far. It stands to make even more as it has not completed its run in theater. In making the list, it knocked off from Dark of the Moon down a spot. Since opening over the holiday in December, the superhero film has gone over to the eclipse. The Dark Knight Rises at the box office to become the highest grossing DC Comics movie, with the film's crossed the $1 billion mark. Director James Wan thanked fans of the track record. Firstly, massive love and thank you to the fans and audiences around the world. Wan said in statement to the Hollywood Reporter, I will forever be indebted to Jason for training Aquaman into one of the coolest cinematic superhero ever and becoming the gold standard for this character for generation to me. Momo shared a similar statement on his Instagram when his hit film reached that milestone. My success is for my son. Aquaman is swimming in ticket scale and US movie theater are ringing up yet another year for the history book. The superhero action flick reeled in $64 million last weekend, drawing North Americans' total film 2018 received to the $11.31 million as Monday. According to received to the $11.31 million as Monday, that ended past the previous all-time record of $11.378 million in movie tickets for all of 2016. Also helping 2018, Walt over the top was Disney's Mary Poppins return. Despite a weekend opening worth just $22 million, the sequel, which stars Emily Blunt as the exciting money, edged past the $21 million opening for Paramount. Bumblebee, the latest in the Transformers franchise, which has garnered surprisingly strong review. The collective gross of the triple $11 million for last weekend, their box office later was not stellar. By comparison, last year's top 3 film over the pre-Christmas weekend brought in $127 million. Still, it was enough to put the 2018 on top 10 for a trio of superhero blockbusters earlier this year. Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, and Incredibles 2. All three were produced by Disney, which last weekend broke its own industry record by reaching $3 million in North American film received for the year. That has been Mouse House Studios, Universal, and Warner Bros., each with a collective gross of $1.7 million. The year's record result also cheered competing studio and theater genre, which faced a tough competition from Netflix's Amazon and Apple. Daily donor $200 million bet that a minority cast can appeal to a majority of Americans, he said. The movie, with a mostly black cast, recouped its entire budget on its opening weekend, then went on to gross $1.35 million worldwide. On a more modest scale, Crazy Rich Asian has returned fixed time its $30 million budget. The year also saw the industry breathing new life into the month previously considered dead zone. Black Panther surprised many by becoming the top grossing movie of any year to be released outside the summer and December holiday. In October, another month considered a movie-going wasteland, Venom and A Star is Born demonstrated Black Panther's success with a traditionally shunned release that wasn't fluke. The superhero action flick reeled in $67 million last weekend, driving North America's total film 2018 received to the $11 million as of Monday, according to the Box Office Mojo. That edged past the previous all-time record of $11 million in movie tickets for all of 2016. Also helping 2018 vault over the top was Disney Mary Poppins return. Despite a weekend opening worth just $22 million, the sequel, which stars Emily Blunt as the expecting nanny, edged past a $21 million opening for Paramount's Bumblebee, the latest in the Transformers franchise, which has garnered surprisingly strong review. The collective gross of the $11 million for last weekend's their box office later was not stellar. By comparison, still it was enough to put 2018 on top thanks to a trio of superhero blockbusters earlier this year. Black Panther, $700 million, Avengers Infinity War, $678 million, and Incredibles 2, $608 million. All three were produced by Disney, which last weekend broke its own industry record by reaching $3 billion in North America film receipt for the year. Overall, I stand by the fact that Aquaman is capital letter messy, but it also a few strokes in a positive direction for Warner Bros. Unlike the overall door Batman vs Superman, all to the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been a top dog in a comic book movie space for the last 15 years. DC has a much more extensive and well-regarded history of producing films in the genre, whether it be the 1978 Superman, 1989's Batman, or any numbers of other films. Many of the earliest major superhero box office hits came from DC through their partnership with Warner Bros. DC has produced many beloved, iconic, and immensely successful films over the years. Some of their most prominent highlights include The Dark Knight, Wonder Woman, Joker, The Batman, and even Shazam. Aquaman debuted in the theater just before Christmas 2018, amid a packed holiday slate of movies that also included Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse, Mary Poppins Return, Bumblebee the Millie Mole, and Mortal Legend. It opened with just $67 million in North America, which was the lowest opening of any DCU film so far. About on par with which is the lowest opening of any DCU film so far. About on par with the Black Adam opened with last year. However, it's ultimately ended up showing strong legs at the US box office, as it's only dropped by 23% in second weekend and then once again only by 41% going into its third weekend. Despite the packed holiday release schedule, many of the movies released in December 2018 failed to really connect with audiences. Although Into the Spider-Verse has since become a modern essential, it somewhat underperformed at the box office upon its initial release and did not find a massive audience until it was eventually released on Netflix. Meanwhile, both have the other major blockbuster of that season, Bumblebee and Mary Poppins Return, failed to excite audiences, with the former only pulling in $127 million domestically and the latter $171 million. Audiences still had a clear desire to see a movie for the holidays, and this lackluster response to their other option ultimately resulted in Aquaman becoming the obvious choices. On top of all that, 2018 is a year in which the modern trend of superhero films arguably reached its peak. Much of the excitement for the genre that had been built over the preceding decade was still at work at the box office in 2018, and it was before the crack would again to slow with the failure of films like Dark Phoenix and Hellboy in 2019, and in New Mutants and Wonder Woman 1984 in 2020. There were 9 major comic book movies released in 2018, ranging from The Avengers, Infinity War to Venom, Deadpool 2, Black Panther, Incredibles 2, and more, and all of them were successful to some degree. Aquaman was the last major superhero movie release of this year, and it was riding on immensely positive wave following this deal of releases that were largely great successful, both critically at the box office. It was not just a lack of better options combined with the good cramming amid a building superhero movie craze that made a Aquaman success. A lot of people were also genuinely excited about the film, both in the lead up to the release and more importantly during its theatrical run. The trailers released ahead of the film's round up a lot of the hype of the movie, which appeared to be a great mix of the typically exciting superhero spectacle alongside the adventure of Indiana Jones and the immense scale and fantasy of the Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. The advertising campaign for the first Aquaman really connected with people, and that success was translated into great box office success. This was not just pre-release hype. Even after Aquaman came out, there was a lot of very positive word of mouth going around about the movie. A lot of people were having a blast with Aquaman, and they were telling their friends and family about it throughout the holiday season, which encouraged him to check out it into the fellow week. Despite a middling critic score of 65% on Rotten Tomatoes, the film debuted with a solid audience rating of about 80%. It has since dropped to the 72%, and it received a strong A on cinema score. This positive atmosphere surrounding the film gave it some of the extra energy that it needed in order to secure a strong box office performances. Finally, one of the biggest factors that contributed to the strong performance of Aquaman was the success that it had overseas. While Aquaman performed well in North America, where it pulled in a total of $35 million, making it the second highest grossing film in a DCU, behind just Wonder Woman, its international success was truly legendary. In global market, Aquaman managed to gross an additional $808 million, more than $250 million, beyond that what any DCU movie had done overseas prior to or since. This brought Aquaman's overall box office to an incredible $1.143 million, surpassing many of DC's most successful films, such as The Dark Knight Rises and Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice, Evan Joker, which also exploded in popularity with international audiences the next year, failed to reach the height of Aquaman, as it pulled in $788 million versus and global to a total of the $1.0624 billion. It was its outstanding success in the international market that drove Aquaman to become the success that it was at box office. A key part of the success was the movie's reception in China, where it grossed $291 million. It also pulled in about $30 million from countries such as Australia, the United Kingdom, South Korea, France, Brazil, and Mexico individually. While it may seem unlikely that a sequel, Aquaman that lost the kingdom will be able to recreate this success. We are in so rush to discount the film's potential at the box office, considering the first film's surprising and striking success. Jason Momoa's Aquaman has broken record at the worldwide box office to become the 20th highest grossing film of all time over the weekend, according to Box Office Mojo. The blockbuster has made over $1.13 billion so far. It stands to make even more as it has not completed its run in the theater. In making the list, it knocked off from Dark of the Moon down a spot since opening over the holiday in December. The superhero film has gone on to eclipse The Dark Knight Rises at the box office to become the highest grossing DC comic movie. When the film crossed the $1 billion mark, director James Wan thanked fans of the character. Firstly, massive love and a thank you to the fans and audiences around the world. Wan said in statement to the Hollywood Reporter, "It will forever be indebted to Jason for turning Aquaman into one of the coolest cinematic superhero ever and becoming the gold standard for this character for generations to come." Momoa shared a similar statement on his Instagram when his hit films reached that milestone. "My success is from my fans," he said. Aquaman is now the first DC movie since The Dark Knight Rises to earn over $1 billion at the global box office. Aquaman is the first of the 6 films DC extended universe to cross $1 billion worldwide according to Box Office Mojo. This is also the first weekend since Aquaman premiered domestically that it has slipped to second scale place. At the box office, Aquaman earned $70 million in its fourth weekend for release, while the upside starring Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart. This is Aquaman director James Wan's second film to cross the $1 billion mark at the global box office. He also directed made over $1.5 billion back in 2015. This is biggest movie box office help explain in as usual universe costing decision a number of years later. While the franchise has not reached the financial height of MCU gloatiers like Avenger, Endgame DC movie history has had some major hits and a number of releases that managed to cross the hour out after 1 billion box office mark. The DCU timeline resulted in some notable example of DC box office hits. The cinematic universe would eventually come to an end in 2023. However, the franchise's biggest hits hold an important legacy to this day, and one that seemingly shed light on a way specific casting became reality for the DC Universe timeline despite raising some eyebrow. While the annals of DC movies history have largely centered on Batman and Superman, it is instead the King of Atlan who takes the crown in terms of its highest box office. 2018 Aquaman earned $1.13 billion in its worldwide box office, as per Box Office Mojo, placing it among the superhero movie to have made over the billion mark. DC has had strong box office result in the years since. They have never timeline quite managed to beat this resulted. 2019 Joker came closest recently, with its own $1 billion worldwide box office, and The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises would also come once again fall short despite hitting the $1 billion metric. This result does make sense, but in some of Aquaman offering a big again adaptations of a character who has been historically majority overlooked in this regard. And in terms of providing plenty of spectacle thanks to its unveiling of the underwater DC kingdom, given this result, It also makes sense that DCU made a notable casting decision. Jason Momoa being cast as DC's universe was a decision that garnered some notable audiences surprise when it was first announced. Since the DCU intent was to move away from the DCU's past, bringing such a prominent DCU actor in naturally raised some questions mark, even if Momo was returning in a new role. However, seeing just how successful Aquaman was adds more context to this decision. Aquaman's success means many know Momo as Aquaman. It also showed how effective the actor could be in the superhero genre in DC world. Meaning so long as the DCU can establish his logo as notably different to Aquaman, the decision will likely pay off. Given Lobo is quite different to Aquaman on several levels. Other than the fact about both share a love of fighting and, depending on the version of Aquaman, a love of short comment. This should not prove too difficult for the franchise. As such, the DCU can have the benefit of bringing back a major DCU actor who starred in DC's biggest box office, seemingly without it determined. Momo is also associated with a range of the franchises, including the Fast and the Furious Dawn and Game of Thrones, further establishing him as a box office draw and as someone who is not necessarily thought of as Aquaman. As such, the decision to make room for the actor also makes sense on this level. Since Jason Momoa has repeatedly proven himself proficient in a big franchise, with DC not being afraid to be being back pair DC actor in your role, like Nathan Fillion and Anthony Kerrigan, bringing back a more prominent actor like Momo present some challenges, but also some unique advantage. Having an actor who is closely with the knots of the expanding cinematic universe makes sense for the DCU to capitalize on, especially this early in its own setup. The specific decision to cast Jason Momoa as Lobo itself seemed specifically per for course following Aquaman given that the 2018 movie achieves. While Lobo is less the subject of the mockery and more just a character that tends to be more obscure to audiences, Momo taking on a role presents some of the same potential. True Lobo tend to be the more cinematic comedy character. The potential is there for the DC universe of providing is there for DC universe providing a version of the Lobo that flashes out the characters for audiences. This would seem particularly given James Gunn's history, where taking characters audiences tend to take this seriously and add more complexity to them. As evidenced with Polka Dot Man and Whistle in the Gun Prayer DC released, combined with Momo's history. Now doing the same, it seems very much likely this is a possible approach for Lobo. But Jason's Momo's Lobo set to appear in 2026 Supergirl. It will soon become clear with whether the DC universe will be able to replicate some of the DCU success with Aquaman in Momo's new casting. Whatever happened, this decision is sure to be a fascinating part of this movie lore, specifically given Aquaman's immense box office success. Thanks to the smash success of Aquaman, A Star is Born, and the Meg Warner Bros. Capped off 2018 with a new milestone. The studio had its biggest year to date at the worldwide box office, crossing $5.6 billion in ticket sales and outpacing 2017 by 9%. Both domestic and international marketing contributed to the boost in the ticket sale, putting the studio behind Disney at number 2 in terms of market share. The studio North American box office bounty crossed $1.9 billion versus Warner Bros. Generated $3.6 billion, an uptick of 17% from 2017 and collapsing the record of $3.17 billion set in 2014. The improvement was due in part to the foreign market, where Warner Bros. Non-traditional films really worked in those regions, and that was very interesting. Saturn Vulture, Warner Bros. Head of international distribution. That means audiences are very respected to go to the movie and see good stories. That's very encouraging. Warner Bros. Regards your years came despite some fears and wind in a major market. Multiplexes in Italy, Spain, and South Korea suffered some decline, and China's growth slowed to the 9%. Still, China had a banner year for the studio, and he brought in over $951 million. Jason Momoa glistening, a hips paired with the appeal of Furious 7. Director James Wan were able to be lure moviegoers and make Aquaman a heroic achievement. It's now bought Warner Bros. And this is highest grossing movie to date in the Middle Kingdom. Not all titles that struck a chord in Hollywood were able to find their footing overseas. Crazy Rich Asians, for example, could not find an audience in China. That's practically because what made the films become a cultural in North America was the novelty of having a big budget studio romantic comedy with an all-Asian cast for the first time in 25 years. It did not hold the same resourcefulness in the mainland, where most theatrical releases feature Asian talent. China is such an interesting place because it's very unpredictable, Molter said. When you can get a movie that really resonates with the Chinese audiences, it makes a big difference. Overall, a diverse slate of the blockbuster buoyed revenues a new height. Aquaman was Warner Bros. Top earning movie of the year worldwide with $850 million and counting while A Star is Born was the sole title to cross $200 million in North America in 2018. Aquaman did not pass that milestone domestically until January. The studio's other biggest films globally include Fantastic Beasts, The Crime of Grindwild, Ready Player One, and Impact $528 million. Correction: this article originally stated that Warner Bros. Crossed $42 billion worldwide. Well, this was fun. I wasn't expecting to like this all that much, and since this film tend to suck at them, I now like to DCU movie. Why can't the other be like this is? Why does Grant see creatures were fun to see in DC film, and the whole underwater thing worked well and gave the movie a different feel from other superhero film, which all becoming way too damn similar. Jason Momoa was also a lot of fun to watch, mainly because you can tell that he's having a lot of fun playing this character. Okay, and he is also hot, but my heart still belongs to Thor. Chris Hemsworth is still the ultimate hottie. The two male females roles were also very strong, which is becoming more popular in movie. We don't want we see a useless woman. Amber here the Nicole Kidman kick ass. Whoever tough Kidman would kick his ass. And Amber Scare's character was cool. I was not sure how I would feel about her as I have never thought she was the greatest actor. Hell, I even really liked the love story between Aquaman's parent. I don't normally go for this sort of thing, but all the characters were so likable in this that you wanted everyone to live happily ever after. I can't say I give this lightest shit about either Superman or Batman in this DCU film. The characters need to be likable if we are going to care about what happened to them. Hollywood still hasn't quite figured this out. Beyond that, I don't know what else to say about this movie. I always struggle to review superhero movies. They are fun and enjoy them while watching them, but it's not a favorite genre of mine. I don't expect anything Oscar worthy from them. I just want to switch off for a couple of hours and be entertained. Aquaman was definitely entertaining, and I may have possibly liked it even more than a few of the MCU movies. It was the final movies I went to be in cinema in 2018, and it was a good one to finish the year. I really enjoyed it, as did the hobby and the kid, so it was a good family movie too. A screenplay is a wide, ever-changing thing, but in its earlier stages often filled with the writer's wildest, most fantastical ideas dream up with no thought given to budget restriction. Saying that usually gets struck from the finished product for being too complex, too ambitious, too time consuming, or simply too expensive. I mention this only because I just experienced Aquaman. Quite possible, the first major release film I have ever seen that felt like not a single idea from the conception phase was voted for being too insane or over the top, yes, and octopus will play the drum. Yes, Julie and Rio will voice a Lovecraftian sea beast who live at the Earth's core. Yes, there will be grab people. Yes, there will be grandchildren, shrimp, and used as a war machine. Yes, we will ask Odysseus to believe that Patrick Wilson is Jason's Momo's younger brother. Yes, to every single idea that might entertain the audiences, our requirements generally hatched 2 hour plus runtime. Plot wise, the result is a hot. For me, mess, my friend, but a mess that washed over me like a tidal wave. A mess so wild and candy colored, and eager to have a business term that it's some of the most fun I have had at a theater this year. Anchored by a Momo, who is having the time of his goddamn life, and director James Wan. Genuinely gorgeous vision of an entire universe under the ocean wave. It's a bite of an annoying greatest. Try to tell you to see a movie on the biggest screen possible. But Aquaman is truly one of this year's only film, along with the drama and Mission Impossible Fallout. Not bad company, where it's a practically aggravated. You seek out the waiters, load a screen you can. I would project this thing on the side of an actual ocean liner if I could, and then the ocean liner would somehow get tossed into a hurricane made of humpback whale, because there's a type of movie Aquaman is. To put it much more, I do recommend the expenses. Picking up a year after 9 foot tall kitchens are still Steppenwolf try to invade Earth in a Justice League. Aquaman sees Arthur Curry, but now the Atlantean Queen, and a human lighthouse skipper, being called back to his native Atlantis by Mare and Yolko, where Arthur's half-brother's Orm is planning war with the surface world, because Atlantis still settled succession dispute with fires to the dead but are trigger for bureaucracy. The refreshing thing about Aquaman is, for all its technical wizardry, the plot is surprisingly old school, owing a lot to the adventure serial of the 1930s and 40s that later birthed the Indiana Jones movies. It's a MacGuffin seeking treasure hunt, with Arthur and Mera Globe hoping to collect clue. One scene in Desert Crypt almost feels like the rare bright spot of the early Tomb Raider movie. This plays nicely to Momo's return. The former Khal Drogo is not going to win any dramatic Oscar anything soon, but as a voice cracking henchman punching adventure with a charismatic grin, he is a young Harrison Ford, plus 5 inches. Momo leaned so hard into the Chinese auditions it would have killed him if he was lactose intolerant. And make no mistake, Aquaman is a cheesy film, but the cast, especially its leading man, are well aware and have a way of making it work. But the real star of Aquaman is a faulty man, effects supervisor Charles Gibson and Calvin, and a veritable army of effects technique have created. Every frame of the film's underwater kingdoms is a bursting with life in the same way a gorgeous splash plague, no pun intended, in a comic book would. I would legitimately love to pause Aquaman occasional, just take in the pet shark, mere people, calf goddess, and whatever else is floating on by in the background. It's not just the magnitude of it all. Either it's the small little van and go. Back into this crowded underwater scene, down to the way characters' hair float around them as they talk. The film's first glimpses of Atlantis in all its glory is legitimately breathtaking. Unfortunately, Aquaman's mission is also eventually its undoing story voice. The script by David Lazar Johnson and Will Beall tries to juggle both Arthur and Mera search for the Trident with the arms of years plan to be built an army. Plus all that exposition explaining the nitty-gritty history of the Atlantis, which resulted in a back half so packed it became confusing. The film's massive climatic set pieces is individually stunning, but it's hard to tell exactly who is killing who and why. And it's unclear if the characters themselves know. Is there's kinds logic loops and layering cloud turn diameters Aquaman's quality. There are some clever flashbacks to Walter staining as a kid, but a combination of questionable child acting and the rushed exposition keep them from blending in enough to have any real impact on Arthur as an adult. Also, and this is an incredible specific Weber, but trust me, it's accurate. The scripts relies far too heavily on scene, transitioning on a surprising explosion. It got to the point where I just assumed every single conversation would be interrupted by someone suddenly blasting through the wall, when action is on a more grounded human scale. However, when whips up some true big voices of the ass kicking, the director's time as a modern day horror on the Conjuring films seem to have thought that what's happening in the background should draw the eye just as much as the foreground. The same is true of his action, which often says cinematographer John Burgess. Camera flip floating between a multiple combatant. The highlight of the entire film is confrontation between Arthur, Mira and Mancha and Silese. A laser blasting, brawl that flows seamlessly across the rooftop, through living rooms, and right into a toilet. It makes sense in context. Insidious fans rejoice there's also seen set in the horrific homeworld of the trans evil monsters Atlanteans created by Geoff John, a producer on the film that allowed Van to flex his trademark jump scare musical. Overall, I stand by the fact that Aquaman is capital letter messy, but it's also a few strokes in a positive direction for Warner Bros. This is you unlike the overly door Batman vs Superman and generally Habsar's Justice League. Aquaman left me wanting more. More of this character, more of this world, more of Van Helming superhero flick. While Wonder Woman is probably still the best movie to come from the DCU, Aquaman feels unlike a comic book event. Rainbow colored and out of its mind. And no, before you ask, Aquaman does not feel like a Marvel movie. Either I would wager he does go for wild places than any MCU movie. Besides, maybe Ragnarok would go. Under the Marvel umbrella, you can probably expect a satisfying origins story or outspace romp. But in the DC, it turns out it's better done where it's a bit better. Take it from me. Plot wise, the result is a hot, fuming mess, my friends, but a mess that washed over me like a tidal wave. A mess so wild and candy colored, and eager to have a beach time that it's a some of the most fun I have had at a theater this year. Anchored by a Momo, who is having the time of his goddamn life, and director James Wan, generally gorgeous given of an entire universe under the ocean wave. It's a bite of an annoying critics. Try to tell you to see a movie on biggest screen possible. But Aquaman is truly one of this year's only films along with the Roma and Mission Impossible followed. Not bad company, where it's practically required you seek out the baby dust. Loudest screen you can. I would project this thing on the side of an actual ocean liner if I could. And then the ocean liner would somehow get lost into a hurricane made of from back whereas because as a type of movie Aquaman is. To put it much more so I recommend these expenses. Picking up a year for an football kitchen or sell Seven Wolf try to invade art in Justice League. Aquaman sees Arthur Curry, born of an Atlantean queen, and the human lighthouse keeper, being called back to his native Atlantis by Mera and Vulko, where Arthur's half-brother Orm is planning war with the surface world. Because Atlantis still settles succession dispute where fires to the dead but the seeker for bureaucracy. Orm can't actually drag the land dweller without support of all five underwater kingdom before Orm can wrangle together the army he needs. Arthur starts with his tracking down the legendary Trident of King Atlan, which would give him mastery over the seven seas at some point a few years ago. There must have been an urgent corporate meeting at Warner Bros. Pictures about Aquaman. The subject of the meeting. How do we make Aquaman not name? In the laundry list of the ridiculous suggestion, I imagine that some the items included cast above. Charismatic dude as Arthur Curry, and featured the electric guitar prominently. It's the end of 2018, a pretty darn good year for a comic book movie. And a guest all out. The word of element that is together to create Aquaman actually work. Well, when a movie is not having a wide identity crisis. The James Wan directed film focuses on the child of the two worlds, Arthur being the son of a male human, and the Atlantean queen carries half-brother Orm, rules Atlanteans but his war-mongering behavior toward the surface world lead to concern from his Mera, who required courage to stop Orm and take the throne. It's downright impossible for me to describe Aquaman without dropping the title of several other film titles. The setup and the dynamic between Arthur and Orm are reminiscent of Black Panther. The journey of Arthur and Mera turned into the national treasure. Atlantis straight up looks are like underwater avatar. By the end, I thought that he knew Godzilla trailer was playing again by accident. And over a lot of the rings, battle sequences, there is a point in the film that even reminded me of How to Train Your Dragon 2, but will it blend? The short answer to that question is yes, and it all comes down to Jason Momoa as a leading man. We got only a taste of him in Justice League, but besides some mutinous of the alright and my money, there was not too much to chew from his part in the film. It previous us me with glimpses of his personality, and that is fully expanded in one take on the character. I say that Momo is the character holding it together because he remains a constant throughout the film. Arthur displays a disheveled, devil may care attitude, and while much of the film can be said to be a derivative of other modern superhero films, I don't think this is a case of the particular protagonist. Most films nowadays seem to be want to copy Deadpool and Guardian of the Galaxy. But upon close inception, Aquaman strives to forget the tone of its own through its protagonist. Despite his antic, Arthur is never an annoying or boring character. Kick-ass Squall with Atlantis and his heritors, but he ultimately answers the call to action not because of any profound change in his character, but because he realizes that it is a consistent with his own desire for helping and saving regular folk. Truthfully, Arthur and the film as a whole could be a little manner to us surface folk for pollution. Yes, war mongering ocean people are bad, but why were they only ones who needed to change during this movie? We have come to a point in blockbusters where subverting expectation means someone moment, and there is a lot of instance of Arthur interjecting in such thing with the bro moment. But there is just something about Momo delivery that made me laugh instead of roll my eyes. It helps that Emperor here compliment him well, being more of so-called like Black Widow in Captain. Another reason why I would compare Aquaman to Black Panther is due to the apparent devotion to world building. Atlantis is a world that I was hoping I would want to impress myself, but everything, ironically, no pun intended, seemed very surface level. Bright colors and futuristic technology were prevalent, but I wanted a greater understanding of just how Atlantis society operated, like Black Panther. In Wakanda, also less so, with Wakanda being rooted in Afro-Futurism and Atlantis being pure fantasy. This will make me wish for some sort of the Atlantis miniseries instead. What a culture like? What is the experiences of being a normal Atlantean? Why the adversaries to the half-bred of the Arthur query? Do people sport them or miss trying to stir up? Instead, we just get a bunch of extras who love to see the brutal, lacked up bloodless as a stadium. In the end, Aquaman is just a classic Shakespeare tale that mixes a lot of strange inspirations together. Even the soundtrack is electric, with electric guitar that I mentioned at the top. Some traditional orchestral music. The drama between Orm and Arthur severely disappointed. However, there was a real opportunity to make Orm almost Kilongaroscu. But Patrick Wilson is just decidedly super hammy in the role. I usually try to not laugh every time he says, Ocean Master. As soon as I was able to find my bearings amongst all the craziness, I was able to just sit back and enjoy the action. The underwater sequences work, given the uncharted territory for having to simulate underwater combat. But action on the ground, his very film was its strongest. A chase battle scene on the rooftop of Chelsea. Italy was for sure my highlight. I don't think choreographed fight or particularly was strong without. I think his Furious 7 was inferior to Justice Lane work in the Fast and Furious series, with both it and Aquaman having too many unnecessary stylistic camera motion. But cheers to Van for trying to hone his crowd beyond his usual horror movies, The Conjuring being one I enjoy in particular. Jason Momoa's portrayal of Aquaman was a new take on a legendary superhero. He was a little less royal and elegant than cartoon comic version, and a little more, well, just more. He is first compelled seen as an adult portrait, as an angry and hurting individual. He beat up some hair bad guys and rescued a submarine. He left a bad guy to die, and then he proceeded to almost get himself into a bar fight. At this point, I was pinning Aquaman as more a Batman style superhero. But just when I thought and I had Aquaman figured out, he started cracking jokes and being all sweet. We begin to see Aquaman's gentle caring in his conversation with his father. We also see that he has a sense of humor when he meets up with Mera, played by Amber Heard. The two of them have an immediate on-screen connection, and it's easy to tell that Mera is going to be a love interest. Aquaman was kind of a confusing character throughout the film, aside from his mother leaving at a young age. He didn't have a reason to be hardened. He had a pretty simple and straightforward childhood. He had a close relationship with his father and received special combat training from a man I think who was his uncle. Either way, he seemed rather happy growing up. So when we see him as an adult and he is angry and hardened, I was slightly caught off guard. Luckily, he quickly changes to more upbeat, funny sort of characters that matches his character's development. I don't blame Jason for this inconsistency in the character of Aquaman. In my opinion, Jason Momoa did fine job acting, and I think that he could do an even better with the sequel. From an acting standpoint, I would argue to say that Amber here did a better job than most of the actresses in the movie. She was a central character to the film and followed Aquaman throughout. This movie has some wild stuff in it. Part of it felt like a sci-fi film with crazy water, car, and laser gun. Other parts felt like a fantasy adventure with giant monster and epic fight scene. And then there were the part that seemed more like a normal superhero movie. The movie was kind of all over the place. While this was fun, I wasn't expecting to like this all too much since DC film tend to suck other than fun to see in DC film and the whole underwater thing worked well and gave the movie a different feel from other superhero film, which are becoming way too damn similar. Jason's Momo was also a lot of fun to watch, mainly because you can tell that he is having a lot of fun playing this character. Okay, and he is all hot, but my heart still belongs to Thor, Chris Hemsworth. Beyond that, I don't know what else to say. The two main female roles were also very strong, which is becoming more popular in movies. We don't want messy, useless women. Amber Heard and Nicole Kidman kick ass. Whoever thought Kidman would cook ass? And Amber's Heard character was cool. I wasn't sure how I would feel about her, as I have never thought she was the greatest actor. Hell, I even really liked the love story between Aquaman's parents. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom may be the final film in the DCU 10 year, but then don't expect it to tie up all the loose ends left behind by a half-finished trilogy. And that and post-credit scene, James Wan's humorous and surprisingly heartfelt. Sequel is focused solely on bringing Archer's Carey's story to a close and is just so wide out going completely off the deep end. In Aquaman, Arthur Curry made a handful of enemies while claiming he is rightful title as the true king of Atlantis, namely David Can, whose father was killed by Outer. prompting Ken to vow vengeance against him. Aquaman spoke at the scene, established that the newly minted Black Manta, who was rescued by the saint Dr. Stephen Shin, would be the next big threat for Arthur to face, and the sequel based, that of in epic proportion. Following the events of Aquaman, and neatly explained by Arthur at the start of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Arthur and Mera lived in happily ever after once the credits rolled. They got married, had a baby, and settled into life as the rulers of the Atlantis. While his half-brother's arm was imprisoned for far away from the ocean. But the happy little life they have made for themselves come under threat when Can gets his hand on a black trident and finally has a mean to take away everything that Arthur holds there. Recognizing that he is a little out of his depth facing ancient technology that he was not raised to understand. Arthur tracks down where Horm is being held in prison, breaks him out, and releases him to embark on buddy cop style adventure. Even after everything that happened in Aquaman, Arthur still carries to ill will toward his life brother. He was not raised to hate him, the way Orm was by his father Orvex. With Arthur sweeping in to save Orm from the abuse, he was enduring his prison albeit for an ulterior motive. Orm is forced to see his brother in a new light, while he may loathe being called little brother by Arthur. Orm comes to be understand him, and maybe even like him, crosses the first two acts of the sequel. As Arthur and Orm repair their fractured relationship, the film uses their bond to hold a mirror to an even more continent pair of brothers. Towards the end of the film's second act, Aquaman, the Lost Kingdom, revealed exactly who Can has been possessed by the king of Nearchus, who forget the Black Trident and led his entire kingdom to ruin. Hundreds of the thousands of years ago, after his action were discovered, his brother King Atlan defeated him and bound him in ice with blood magic. As Atlana revealed that it was not magic, but DNA that Atlan used to defeat his brother. Arthur and Mera realizes that his Can is going to go after their son, back on land, where Arthur's father Tom is babysitting. Junior Black Manta shows up, stab him, but leaves him alive just to torture Arthur and steal the baby before anyone can wash up to save the day. When Arthur finally makes it home, he finds his childhood home going up in flame while his father stumbles out, barely clinging to life fortune. Can's plan to make Arthur watch his father played out, just as he watched his own father die at Arthur's hand, is foiled by the advanced medical technology of Atlantis. With Junior Inzikiani's sculptures, the stack siege of favor page for Arthur and Atlantis. They devise a plan to take on Can and his army, which includes utilizing dishonor of whales to disarm Can's dangerous technology that was them thus far. Can and Dr. Shin make it to a throne room, where Can intend to sacrifice Junior to break the blood magic and free the king of Negroes. Toward Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, it was established both subtly and blatantly that Dr. Shin was only working with Can to see Atlantis for himself. So it's not necessarily a surprise when Can asks Dr. Shin to hand over Junior, and instead he hands him an explosive. But his heroic are short-lived, as Can knocked Dr. Shin to the ground and grabbed the baby himself. Nereus is entered by one of the necroid creatures lurking in Necros, and for a moment it seems like he might not make it out as Orm peer down at him and smirk. Rather sincerity, but it was not a smirk for betrayal. Instead, Orm uses his axe to chop at the creature and rescue Nereus, much to the surprises. In return, Nereus finally gives him an actual weapon to face down the undead foes they are up against. Arthur, Orm, and Mera arrive at the gate of the throne room just in time for Arthur to receive a pancake message from his son as Can presses him in the altar primed and ready to commit a little infanticide. Arthur and the Orm take on Ken. It is definitely an unbalanced fight thanks to the power. Ken has been limb imbued while the brothers have Ken distracted. Mera sweep in this rescue her son before anything untoward can happen to the baby. As Mera attempts to escape the fairy with Junior, Manja lobs the black trident at her, but Orm sweeps in to save the day, snatching the trident in midair and urging her to run. With both hands clutching the black trident, Orm is overwhelmed by the full power of the trident as the king of Nick decided to help from Kanto man who hold even more needed for Aquaman. Of course, this is not true, at least not anymore. Orm knocks Arthur around, including into the altar where his blood breaks the spell that has been keeping the king at bay for centuries. Orm and Archer tussle over the trident, but ultimately Arthur reminds Orm that he has never had an issue with him. From the very beginning, he wanted to ensure that Orm knew that he was not alone. In an emotional moment, Arthur begs him to let go of the trident so he can take out their fear once and for all. With the memory of their mother, telling them to watch out for each other fresh in mind. Orm releases the trident and Arthur chucks it at the king of Negros. He does not go down that easily, but with a little fast thinking. Arthur uses his own trident to shatter the black trident and kill the king of Negros once and for all. With the king defeated, the magic keeping the Negros together begin to crumble, introducing a new threat for the heroes to escape. Arthur, Mera, Norm, Nereus, and Dr. Sheen escape the collapses of the Lost Kingdom and regrouped on topside to access the damage. Arthur tells Orm that his debt has been repaired in his eyes, hinting that he does not think Orm need to play the sacrificial hero by turning himself into the fisherman. Mera adds that it was a shame that Orm died in battle, which Arthur agrees with. Orm seems genuinely surprised that they are both willing to turn a blind eye to his escape and allow him to live his life outside of prison. He and Arthur shares a sweet brotherly moment, playing off Mom's reluctance to take Arthur's hand earlier to the film. At the start of the films, it was established that one of the points of friction in Arthur's role was that he believed Atlantis needed to reveal itself to the world, with climate changes posing a greater threat to the ocean than ever before. Thanks to Ken's diverse plan, it seemed that the author was finally able to sway the council to reveal the hidden action to the world. As Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom draw to close, we are shown a reel of new broadcasts reporting on the revelation. And finally, the day that Arthur and several other key figures from Atlantis come to the surface to meet with the United Nations. All across the world, people rush to the nearest television screen to watch this grand unveiling, including Dr. Shin, who just thinks the whole thing is outstanding. The sequences closes out with the Arthur speaking to members of the public and the United Nations who have gathered at Ellie's Island to become them to the surface, and in typical Arthur fashion. He is both kingly and bros wise deliver his speech to the world. Surprisingly, despite being prime and set for a cameo, audio sequences never stray away from the core cast of a sequel. This is after all about bringing Arthur's story to an end, without a need for cliffhangers or setting up the next big threat in the DCU. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is able to give its cast of character a gentle send-off. Arthur's childhood home seems to have been rebuilt in the intervening month, and everyone is happy, which we know from past films isn't always a guarantee. The sequences highlight little moments from a given day, woven together to show how happy everyone is. Tom and Atlanta have seemingly reunited and are very cozy together. Tom and Arthur performing Haka for Junior. Junior plays with his Gyan sibling and Mera, and Arthur seem happy as calm. As for the film, he even show Orm happily living on island and enjoying a hamburger for the very first time, which also serves for the film's mid credit scene. Yes, we already need to be teased the future of DCU. The Aquaman sequel got to have fun with its mid-cutscene. Orm adds a deliciously crunchy cockroach to his cheeseburger as a neat little throwback to Arthur convincing his little brother to eat a roast earlier in the film. Whether it was the plan all along, or a handful of clever reshoot once it becomes clear it was the end. James Wan ensured that Arthur Curry was the only character in the DCU to have a near perfect and sent off into the annals of DC comic history. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has just been released, and it has already given some fans a true treat to what a DC live action movie should be. The fun and the fast paced approach of the films allowed it to become an enjoyable ride. Of course, a lot of things happened in the movie, and there were those who were more interested in the action and comedy instead of the actual thing that were happening. As the DCU's final movie, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom was a great and a fitting conclusion to what was a short-lived run for this live-action movie universe. So with that said, let's look at what happened in the Lost Kingdom. The opening scene of the movie is focused more on what was happened going in Arthur Curry's life as a superhero king has been father in 4 years that went by since the event of the first movie. Arthur has a focus on his role as the protector of the ACS and as King of Atlantis. However, he also ended up marrying Mera and becoming a father to Arthur Jr. Arthur and Mera live on the surface in the Curie lighthouse would have to go to the Atlantis from time to time to fulfill their duties as of an entire kingdom. The problem that Arthur had as king was he almost always engaged the decision, making clear life as a leader of the Atlantis quite troublesome for him. Nevertheless, he loves the fact that he is avoided despite how boring being a king can be. There were also moments wherein he and his father discussed how important family was, especially when it came to be Arthur's relationship with his brother Orm, whom we know was the villain of the first movie and was now a prisoner forced to repent for his crime. Meanwhile, while Arthur was living the life of a father and a king, his other rival was elsewhere, plotting his demise. David Can, otherwise known as Black Manta, was scoring the Antarctic for Atlantis technology in order to defix the powered suit and kill. Dr. Sheena, scientist working for Can, was traveling the through Antarctica until his eyes under him broke and led him to an underground cavern where a monster attacked and killed his companion. Manta and the rest of the group arrived to be investigate and cavern that sand found, only for them to realize that they had found an ancient civilization that was similar to the Atlantis but had been abandoned and was far darker. After encountering and surviving the same monster that killed Shan's companion, Ken saw a broken black trident that was seemingly calling to him. He touched the trident and put the two pieces together, as the trident gave him a vision that would grow on the next phase of his life. The entity he saw in his vision promised him the power to kill Aquaman and destroy Atlantis in exchange of freeing him, and that was why Black Manta was now intent on finding a way to fulfill his end of the bargain with his entry. 5 months after Black Manta found the trident, the scene shifts to Arthur as Mara tells him that the council has called a meeting. In a meeting, the council discussing a plague that had been killing them due to the rising pollution levels in the surface world. This very same pollution was damaging the water and causing Atlantis to go sick. Arthur proposed to the council they should reveal themselves to the surface world so that they can work together with the human to fix the damage caused by their activities on the surface. However, the council disagreed with the matter, forcing Arthur to rethink whether or not he was truly fit to be king. Back at home, Arthur and Tramos talk about the problem of being a king and how he thought that he had failed his mentor, who told him that he needed to be the bridge between the surface and the seas. But Holmes told his son that even deciding not to give up is heroic on its own. Meanwhile, Manta and his crew were approaching Atlantis in an ancient submarine that was built by the very same civilization they found in the Dr. Sheen notes that their goal was to infiltrate Atlantis and steal all of their, which was the very same substance that was powering the weapon and tech that Manta and his crew found. When Atlantis found out that there has been an infiltration, Atlanta and Mera spring into action to the attack Manta and his crew. The villain escaped as Black Manta severely injured Mera with a beam from his helmet, causing Arthur to go after the villain. However, the sonic cannon wielded by Manta's crew were far too powerful for any Atlantean to withstand. The failure of Arthur and the rest of the Atlanteans forced to council to decide whether or not the throne should be stripped of executive power. Before the council could decide on the matter, Arthur met up with the King Nereus and Atlanta to discuss what it needed to do and what Manta and his people stole. That was when was revealed to be the cause of what was happening on the surface, as burning heat substance caused immense amount of the greenhouse gases responsible for heating the Earth's atmosphere and causing the people of the sea to suffer. Thinking that they need to have to be find out where Can is, Arthur decided to break arm out from the fisherman, while Nereus and Atlanta were initially unsure for this decision. They decided to help him out. Nereus gave Aquaman a stealth sword, whereas Atlanta gave her Sona named Topo, who was responsible for communicating between Arthur and Atlantis. Before Arthur can set out in mission, Atlanta tells him that he should tell Orm that she loves him, who had been weakened by the fisherman by torturing him and limiting his water. Wondering why his brother was still willing to break him out of prison after the things that happened between them years ago. Nevertheless, he still decided to go with Arthur and was able to regain his strength after rehydrating himself. The two set off an quest to find where Can was hiding. And the only reason why Orm decided to go with Arthur was the fact that he thought that his brother was doing a bad job at leading Atlantis. The two went to a place called the Sunken, which was a pirate haven run by Kingfish. Orm kept this a secret from Arthur because he knew that his brother would not go along with the plan as pirate handed Aquaman. Nevertheless, after some aggressive negotiation with Kingfish, Arthur found out that Manta was hiding in a place called the Devil Deep, which was a dormant volcano somewhere in the South Pacific. Meanwhile, Manta was over at the Devil's Deep, talking to the voice within the Trident. The curriculums, as it turned out, was being burned in an refinery that was releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. The very same gases were turning the wildfire on the island into the monster. Dr. Sheen, who saw what the Trident had been doing to Manta, decided to test the relic to see what and who is this entity on the other side was. What we saw ultimately allowed him to realize that he needed to try to find a way to stop Can and his plan.